right, Josh, you've been tracking this troll for a good bit now, and you feel like it's starting to get dark. You might want to be thinking about camping for the night, depending if you want to push through or not. And just as you're kind of looking for a spot, you see what looks like maybe 200, 300 feet away. Just looks like some light, maybe torch light, potentially.
The troll's probably not in that direction, but I want to head towards that light because there's probably someone there. Preferably, I would like to, not surprise them or anything, or be heard by them. But I'm going to do what I have to do to actually be able to reach them and see them and see what it is.
Sure. Yeah, so that's easy enough to do. I mean, you're starting to be careful, but it actually feels like the light source is moving a little bit, and you pick up your pace a little bit. Like you said, you don't want to lose them, and you're still not getting anything in view. Do me a favor, make a quick perception check.
14.
14. Okay. As you're trying to find where the path of this light is going, you actually step in something feels kind of squishy, and you try to pull your leg out, and all of a sudden, like the foot that you were like bracing on seems to sink into something, and you've now fallen into a classic quicksand trap
Oh no.
brought on by the creature that we are going to feature today, called the Will-O-Wisp.
I knew I should have been more prepared for quicksand in everyday life. Cartoons told me about this for years. Oh. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of JNJtabletop. I am the real Josh T. With me, as always, is Jake, also known as JNJake_. And today we're very happy to bring you the first installment in something we like to call a creature feature. And this has been something we've been talking about doing literally since we started
The beginning, yeah.
JNJtabletop.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to finally get to it. And the first monster that we're talking about, and I should mention creature feature, is essentially we're just gonna talk about some monsters in the monster manual. We'll go over some lore, say what's important to them, and then maybe talk about like some tactics and tell some stories and that kind of thing. But the first creature that we will feature is going to be a will-o-wisp. Will-o-wisps are a lot of fun. Jake, you have anything you want to say about will-o-wisps just as we start things off? First time ever.
Well, the anecdote that we're going to share at the end, if you've watched our Dragon of Ice Fire Peak gameplay, you get to see probably the biggest mistake I've ever made as a DM. But actually turned into one of my favorite moments, actually ever, as far as at the game table, or even if it's online, so however you want to phrase that. But will-o-wisps are cool. So, like, the lore surrounding them, they are like basically this just awful, evil ball of light that just seems innocent. The lore is they feed on despair, they feed on fear, all this like negativity and like things that you would find that are just awful. And it's one of those things where there's just massive juxtaposition between its appearance and then what they're all about.
One of the things that we mentioned when the two of us were just kind of like talking about this beforehand was that they very closely resemble like sirens, where especially in the example that we gave, like in the intro, you're in there, it's the dark, you don't see anything, and suddenly you see this light and it looks inviting, it looks warm. You want to go check it out, see what it is. Maybe there's civilization, maybe it's just a friend, the North Star, or whatever. There's so many things in like stories that have told us like follow the light. But if you follow this light, like it's going to lead you to danger, it's going to try to kill you. It's such a interesting thing because it's like a symbol of hope that leads you to despair. And
Yeah.
it's terrible, but I kind of love that.
Yeah, it's terrible in concept as far as like, oh, that would be awful to encounter, but it's great for D&D because I tried to use an example like some older editions, which we're going to go into some lore maybe a little bit from there, because in a lot of ways, they're actually been pretty consistent from beginning till now in history as far as D&D is concerned. But they have this uh, basically the thing that they do is they try to trap people and lure people. So it needs to feel kind of innocent enough or at least interesting enough, which is why I use the example like it could be Torchlight. It's that kind of a thing. Like they have the ability to be brighter at sometimes, less bright at other times. And in 4E, it says that this stuff can that it can resemble Torchlight. So that's not something that your players are probably instantly going to just connect with. Oh, this is a will-o-wisp. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you could just be like, oh, you just see these lights just like hanging around up there.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, it's a will-o-wisp, right? Like,
Yeah. It's one of those nice things that like even if your players have played like a lot and they've seen will-o-wisps before, if they're looking at it in the distance, it's just a light. So like once they get up close to it and they just see like, oh, it's this floating ball of light, they're gonna be like, oh, it's a will-o-wisp. Nice try, DM.
I
But
see
like,
what you did there.
yeah, exactly. But before that, like you're gonna be able to get them. Well, hopefully, you should be able to get them to follow it pretty far. And you mentioned like other editions. We've read through the second edition description, third edition. I didn't read 3.5. I imagine it's the same as third, and fourth edition and fifth edition. And the like description of what these creatures do has been consistent across all editions. But the one thing that has changed is
Like every time.
yeah, every time. Yeah, in second edition it didn't note anything unless I just missed that. But third
Yeah.
edition it is called an aberration,
Mm-hmm.
a small aberration.
Small.
Yeah, small.
Yep.
Fourth edition we have a fey, and then fifth edition it's considered undead.
Yeah.
Um, which is it's kind of interesting. Like they can't decide what category it fits into.
Yep.
Um, but it is nice that that like the story behind it is consistent every time. It's this little light creature that tries to lead you to danger, and then once you actually get to that danger, it just hovers above, and it just soaks in your anxieties and fears and despair, and then like your essence when you die. Um, Now, one
Yeah.
thing like I think we kind of we talked about again. We talked about this before, but like I understand to an extent why fifth edition says undead, because one thing in the flavor is if a will-o-wisp happens to kill an evil creature, there is a possibility that that evil creature will come back as a will-o-wisp. So in that sense, like I understand, like okay, it's an undead, because this dead creature became this living thing. But I don't know. Personally, I feel like it seems kind of fey. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Fae seems like the most accurate description to me. Like, I think I would use undead as the adjective and then Fae as the noun. Like, it's an
Mhm.
undead Fae because it just has that feeling to me. It feels whimsical in the fact that there's this like floating orb of light that can just kind of do its thing. But it also has that like mischievous feel where it's like, come follow me. It's gonna be great. Nothing
Yeah.
to worry about at all. Uh, you know,
Oh, you got to be quicker than that.
so
You
you
know?
almost got that dollar. Exactly. um, but like in 4E, it says it's attracted to like travel and battle. Battle makes a lot of sense. There's going to be a
Mhm.
lot of fear, anxiety, despair, and those kinds of things. And those are the kind of places that, like maybe if there's like a site of an ancient battle that might have some kind of like other maybe some dangerous predators might use as like its place that it lives. And this would be a very appropriate thing to try and get players to be interested in, like, well, what's going on over here, you know? And
Yeah.
it would just like feed off of the despair of the battle in the past.
That's one thing I have plenty to say about in future videos, but like old battles or even recent battles and how they can attract zombies and ghouls and shadows and that kind of thing. But they're also going to attract, I mean, could be rogues, could be like whoever, anyone trying to find any of your murder hobos who are just trying to find like gear or money or anything like that,
Give me that
why
loot.
not? Yeah, like you're trying to
Yeah.
find loot, check out the remains of a battle. But there's probably going to be some dangerous things there, and there are going to be some will-o-wisps floating above, waiting for you to get hurt, so they could just like, soak in all that with a little straw. I
Yeah.
imagine it as like a bendy straw.
Yeah, where they has to take this like weird path to get to you.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Could you imagine like a will-o-wisp like sunglasses? Like a little like umbrella, and like inside the cup is like the essence of like the adventurers that went in there just like, nah man, everything's great. My future's so
There's
bright I have to wear shades.
a little tiny umbrella sitting in the adventurer drink,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
just like, hmm,
We're good. Everything's normal.
tastes like sadness.
Yeah. Yes. So in case you haven't caught on, if you're looking to use will-o-wisps in your adventure or in your games as a DM, you're the basic premise here is the will-o-wisp is the lure to bring the party into a dangerous place. Typically,
Yes.
I believe it says like swamps and morasses, those kinds of things. But it should seem innocent in a way. It should
Mhm.
seem intriguing. It should seem like something that the party should want to investigate. So, in the example from the intro, I wanted to make it look like, maybe there's somebody hanging around here. If you're thinking about, setting down for the night, well, you want to at least know it's safe. So you probably want to take a quick look to see what's going on.
The thing that I really love about will-o-wisps too is I'll just read it straight from the 3rd edition monster manual, but it says will-o-wisps usually avoid combat. They prefer to confuse and bewilder adventurers, luring them into hazardous places. So I mean, they can fight when they're forced to fight, and we could get into that in a moment, I think. But I I love that aspect of they're just always just trying to just be that thing that's just kind of like, oh, follow me, come with me, like everything will be
Yeah.
fine. And then like, you get there and they're not even they are not even the creature that's going to try to kill you. They just want to watch it happen. They're just that psycho that wants to just like feed off of your horror.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
want
there's some
somebody
really
else to do the
interesting
hard work.
exactly,
It's
but
just the
there's
way
some
it
really
goes.
interesting stories to be told there too,
Mhm.
and it's exactly what you said is they are the lure. Will-o-wisps are the trap. Well, they lead you to the trap, I guess.
Mhm. And other creatures actually will look to take advantage of that. It's almost like it
Yeah,
would be like a symbiotic relationship there where maybe in the intro, maybe the troll now goes, "Ha, I got him." Wait till the thing
yeah,
is dead. The troll eats Trish's flesh and the wisp eats his soul. It's great. It's the way it goes.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Or 5th edition says like maybe you know will-o-wisp will lead people to the lair of like a hag or black dragons or just even like evil cultists, like that. It's really cool, and
Oh yeah. Cultists.
it's yeah, right. It's just a really nice little creature that if your players need to fight them, it'll be an interesting fight. But even if they don't ever actually like engage with them in combat, they could just be that little hook that draws them into, okay, you didn't know anything about the cultists. Maybe they were on like a monster hunt or something, or maybe they were just on a treasure hunt. But now suddenly they are brought to this cultist area and they see some sacrifice going on or whatever. And like that leads them down this crazy path to like the main, main campaign. Um, it's just a really cool little tool to put in your dungeon master's toolkit, tool belt thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's always good when you're thinking of tactics and setting something like this up, and it's going to be something we're going to probably do a lot when we're doing these creature features, is to take a look at how this creature would look to interact with the world around them and how they would meet their needs and or desires in that way. And I love when he brought up cultists. I love that because maybe there's like just these dark fae worshiping people or whatever that are using these will-o-wisps to just bring bodies for sacrifices of some kind. Or I feel like lizard folk would be great to use with this too. And then all of a sudden, like I said, the predator gets the body, will-o-wisp, they get the soul.
They get to watch.
They get, yeah. But they love the negative energy, the fear, the anxiety, the despair, all these things.
I think one thing worth mentioning, if your players do have to fight a will-o-wisp, they're resistant to pretty much everything except for like magical weapons. And even for something small like a will-o-wisp, like, I mean, how many hit points do they even have? They only have 22 hit points.
Yeah, they're not the biggest as far as, at least for 5th edition, I think.
Yeah, it's not a huge. I think the bigger threat is definitely what they like. They're trying to draw you in. But if you have to fight it, like if you don't have magical weapons, like yeah, that's gonna suck. They're resistance to acid, cold, fire, necrotic, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks. So that's not a small thing for a CR2. And then
a lot
they
of
also have
condition
some,
immunities too.
yeah, absolutely. Most of them, actually. And they also have some cool features too. Like I'll just read this one straight from the book. Consume life. As a bonus action, the will-o-wisp can target one creature it can see within 5 feet. If it has 0 hit points and is still alive, the target must succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw against this magic or die. If the target dies, the will-o-wisp regains 10 or 3d6 hit points. That's kind of huge. That's big.
Yeah.
Especially for something that doesn't even its goal is not even to fight you, like, and it's a bonus action,
Kind of works right into the anecdote we have here. So again, if you watch the Dragon of the Icespire Peak playthrough, which is actually it's over a year old now, which is kind of cool, right? And we were just getting started.
That's nuts.
So there are will-o-wisps in the Dragon Barrow quest there. Spoilers, I guess. And I misread the feature that Josh just read. The biggest and most important part of that whole sentence was if the creature or if the target has 0 hit points and is alive. Yeah. I misread the 0 hit points part, so I just figured it needed to get up next to you. Bonus action con save. If you fail, you're dead. And I was like, that's just the most evil. That's just bad design, Wizards of the Coast. Shame on you. It's like that was where I was. But I came up with, a little plan to be able to handle a failed save, which
I could see you just being like, whoa, wow. I mean, now that's save or suck if I've ever seen it.
Yeah. Save or die, bro. Yeah. And so, of course, and it was funny too, because out of the 3 of you, Daisy and Marcus, you're pretty good con saves. You should be fine. I was like, man, I hope Landor doesn't die. It wasn't Landor. I'll just leave it at that.
Nope.
But I came up with, going into it, it was like I made a mistake in how I read it, but I came up with a plan to handle the mistake. And even though that was a very heavy moment in the campaign, I feel like that was one of the most fun moments and satisfying moments to see how you guys would handle that situation, which I felt like it was a very cool story that was told. And everybody got involved and everybody was a part of it, and it was really cool.
And that changed the tone of things, right? Like Landor made different decisions, even on the spells that he took.
Yeah.
Because he was like, well, if this happens again, I need to be prepared for it. Like our party that was like, well, we'll say like a little bit overpowered, right? We started to take things a little bit more seriously, because it's like, even as well as we're doing and as strong as we are, we're just one failed save or one bad move away from death. And I loved that. I thought that you handled it. It was excellent, and so much better than, if the if you didn't misread it,
Weird how that can work out that way.
it is. And I think we like, Bob Ross or our friend Owen of the
Owen.
Woods would call that just happy little accidents. But
I think that's actually what we titled the episode because of
I
that.
think it is.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of I think WebDM did a video recently called like failing forward. And you guys, if you follow us, you know that we're big fans of them. I think they do a great job. But that's a perfect example of failing forward, right? Where like you took something that you misread and killed the character, right?
It's
You
about
took
as
that.
big as it gets. Everybody, the only step bigger is a TPK.
Yeah, right.
It's really.
But you took that and you said, how do we move forward from here, and how do we make this mistake something interesting, something that everyone could take a look at and really think about and really make it memorable. And I think you didn't, not to pump you up too much, but I think you did an excellent job at that. And it's just another little thing for like will-o-wisps in general, right? I mean, like, there's some really cool stuff you could do with them, and maybe you do what Jake did and you give them the power to kill a character, as long as there's a way to do a little, like,
Yeah.
flippy flip and fix it.
I think if I were to use will-o-wisps in the future, I feel like I would have them try to lure the party into something, and then if any party member were to get knocked down, because they have a huge speed, they're very fast. That's when they come zipping in, and they're just like, "Where the heck did this thing come from?"
Yep.
Like, and it's a bonus action, so they can move and dash and move like 100 feet, like bam. And then all of a sudden, just Dementor sucking the soul out of the guys or whatever, so whoever went down, and now it's actually kind of more how it's intended rather than the mistake I made.
Yeah,
But
and that's a perfect example. As a Dementor, I think is an excellent example. And it's funny that you mentioned that too, that like to lure them, because as fun as that was, and as well as you handled that in Dragon of Icefire Peak, I think that they were grossly misused in that adventure in Dragon of Icefire Peak.
yeah,
right?
I could see that.
Because they were bringing you to this location, but the danger of that location was just the will-o-wisps. There was no other danger. Maybe there was some slight other dangers, but like, I think, maybe if I was to recreate that adventure, right? If I was to rewrite that, maybe it's filled with undead, right? Maybe there's ghosts there, or there's something.
Yeah, I would have leaned into that a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And they're, you see the will-o-wisps like floating around and whatever, but the reason they're there is because there's some other danger there. And I think that's the fun of will-o-wisps, and that's where you could really dig in and just get the most use out of them. It's when you have something else going on that's so much worse than the will-o-wisps themselves, and they're just that little in between, just to kind of draw the players in. They're just kind of floating around, they're just those little Bob Ross cows that just, they just like to float around and have fun all day.
Just see what happens. Yeah, they know what might happen, and they might even think, like saying the intro example, be like, "Well, if the troll dies, maybe I could have the despair of the troll."
Yeah,
there's almost a win-win situation for them.
Yeah.
But that's how a will-o-wisp would approach a situation, and that's how we feel like it could really enrich your games if you're going to, find a way to use them.
If you have used a will-o-wisp in your game before, I'd love to hear the stories about that, or if you plan on using them in the future, just like let us know in the comments, because like, obviously we say that and every YouTuber says comment whatever, but even if it's in Discord, like, we genuinely appreciate having those conversations with you. And it makes our videos more interesting, because any thoughts that you give us that are things we haven't thought of ourselves, that just adds to, that's just more for us to pull from.
We're all learning about it together.
Exactly. That was a tweet I made today. we all have something to learn from each other, and we would love to learn from you. So please like, comment, subscribe, follow the Discord, join the Discord, and let's just talk about all the fun stuff that we have going on, or just talk about whatever. So thank you, everyone. We love you, and we'll see you on the next creature.
That's the motion for. Well, where there's a will, there's a wisp, Josh.
I was hoping you were recording for that. That's why I kept, exaggerating it.
I hit record while you were doing it because
okay.
Hi outro. Hi outro.
Oh,
hit the subscribe button.
Do it. Hit the bell too. Just punch it.
Yeah.
Punch it.
Ding, ding. Bonus points if you can tell me in the comment section what movie that's from.
It's from Rocky 4. Rocky 3. Rocky 3.
Maybe it's both.
No, it's Rocky. Well, okay, technically.
Oh.
It is both.